In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are a $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Our today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Our today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Our today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
When you say faster, I just want to see how fast.
Very exciting day. Let the games begin. So we bring to you Airtel 5G Plus.
नेक्स्ट लेवल है, मतलब अब तो मेरी वीडियो फटाक से एकदम से अपलोड हो जाएगी.
मुझे लेटेंसी की अहमियत पता है, मैं उसके लिए ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड.
The technology we have chosen is the one which is widely used in the world. Every 5G phone will work on.
सिम चेंज करने का कुछ जरूरत नहीं था मुझे. नेटवर्क चेंज किया जाके एंड 5G enabled.
Airtel 5G Plus is environment friendly. I think that is very important. क्या मस्त स्पीड है रे.
It's revolution.
Magic.
Once you use it, you can't go back.
Effective supply chain management gives power to fulfill what your customers need, when and where they need it. How will you ensure that your supply chain is reliable, flexible, innovative, and always strives for excellence?
Since the past 2 decades, TVS SCS has been the trusted name in the supply chain industry.
The legacy of TVS brand is more than 100 years old.
We are trusted for the value that we have created.
Our global presence with unmatched supply chain network pan-India, warehousing space of more than 19 million square feet, transportation network across 29 states, and a strong team of more than 10,000 professionals stand together to serve our esteemed customers.
We are trusted for the service that we provide.
Our end-to-end differentiated service portfolio is fitted as per customers' demands. We are partners in customers' journey.
We are trusted for the innovation that we can offer.
Strong technology backbone, integrated digital workflows, automated dashboards, visibility through control tower operation. We are just the way you want us, equipped with all the tools to make your supply chain resilient and agile.
We believe in the power of us.
When we partner with you, we are committed to offer you quality solutions. Together, we strive to achieve newer heights. Together, we stand united to write new success stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you all to please take your seats and settle down. We have our minister for this session already arrived and our other panelists as well. So I request you all to please settle down so that we can bring them in and start the session on time. May I request all of you to please settle down. Ladies and gentlemen, requesting you once again to please settle down before our speakers walk in. Photographers को बोलिए था। Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development and Minority Affairs, Government of India, Srimati Smriti Zubin Irani. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to each one of you to the session on reinforcing the power of inclusiveness, India's growth story. To begin this session, I'd like to invite Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General, Confederation of Indian Industry, to give the introductory remarks and set the mood for the session.
Honorable Minister for Women and Child Development and Minority Affairs of the Government of India, Srimati Smriti Irani ji, Ms. Shobna Kamineni, who's the Executive Vice Chairman of Apollo Hospitals and past President of CII, and Smita Agarwal, who's chairing the CII's Indian Women Network as an institution that we are really wanting to take forward. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and privilege to welcome our Honorable Minister, Srimati Smriti Irani ji, someone who is not unknown to this community, someone who has been of tremendous strength to us, not only in the areas of the ministry that she is today involved in, but in many different avatars, plus also generally when it comes to when we talk about economic policy. And I think today's session, while we are calling it reinforcing the power of inclusiveness, India's growth story, it's not about just the 50% of our population, but I think it's all for everyone. And one of the few sessions which has a good gender balance on the dais, at least, and we have not been able to accomplish that in many other sessions, but this particular session, we are glad that we have that, and we do want to really achieve that in many more sessions to come. Honorable Minister, the Partnership Summit, again, this is something which you have addressed before. You have come, interacted. We have a very strong delegation from across the world. We have, at this point in time, about 400 international delegates present from 67 countries, which includes each and every G20 countries, while some of the ministers of other countries have actually participated in different sessions. We also have two of our ministers from other countries present here in the hall, and I can see our Bhutan minister and our Bahrain minister to be also present there. So we are very happy that this also has international ministerial presence even in this session, because we are really looking forward to, you have said that you will have a conversation and not make any speech, and therefore we will leave it to that. But we would like you to really, they say that it's important that we have someone who is really passionately involved to get started on something which we are really wanting to do with a lot of passion, and that is the Indian Women Network. And the Indian Women Network really working now for a global alliance for skilling for future-ready women is a big agenda for us. Madam Minister, what we want to do through the IWN is first new technologies and increasing digitization. Both of this are really closing gender gaps in education, and access to finance and markets. And this is something that we really try to build that strongly into the Indian Women Network. Second, the startup culture, which really offers phenomenal opportunities for our women. We have been discussing this and making them job givers from job seekers, and accompanied by the rise that we see in services industry. This will be a big opening for our women to design opportunities from around their skill sets. Third, Honorable Minister, we have also looked at the energy transition, which really translates into some phenomenal jobs with new skills, which can provide opportunity for industry to engage women in upcoming jobs. So that's another big area of our focus as we do take the Indian Women Network forward. And fourth is, of course, globalization of value chain, which is yet another trend that is throwing up a plethora of opportunities, allowing women-owned small and medium companies especially to access foreign markets indirectly by supplying to domestic exporters and also helping to reduce fixed cost by exporting. So with your support, Madam Minister, we are very keen to get your inputs today also on that in the course of the conversation. And we would like to play a small film to you and to our audience to really capture what we would like to do in terms of the Indian Women Network. May we have the film, please?
And I'm very proud that the Prime Minister changed that narrative, and we saw a tectonic shift where we now say women-led development, which means that for any nation to prosper, women have to be the helm of economic affairs.
I now request Smita Agarwal, who's chairing the CII Indian Women Network, to hand over the brochure to our Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for really giving this a fillip, and I'm sure we will report back to you as we progress over the course of time. Now, I'll hand over this session to the first women CII president that we have had, Shobna. Shobna, we celebrated success of yours yesterday, but now we'd like you to take this session forward with our Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to the second day of the Partnership Summit. And as I said yesterday, the Partnership Summit continues to grow in importance and as a global voice for the things that India stands for. And I think I'm most happy today to be here, first to add my own welcome to one of India's most outstanding and vocal members of our government and the ministry, Mrs. Smriti, Zubin, Irani. Thank you so much for being here with us. I've heard you speak on many occasions, and I think that what you get from her is really, she's not one to mince words when she feels passionately for something, and women development, women-led development is one subject that I'm going to speak as little as possible, because this is an opportunity for us to gain the most from her, not only, from a global view, but also what India is doing. And I think that brings us to the point of what India is actually doing. You know, as India takes up its presidency of the G20, women empowerment is very high on the agenda for both government and business. And Smriti ji, I know that you're actually chairing this entire initiative. You happen to be doing it with my sister, but I think on this platform, CII provides you as a truly global, narrative for this. And we need every opportunity, every Indian to be able to work together to create this huge, there are complex challenges, and we continue to face them. But I think more than important, it's an opportune time. This morning is an opportune time for us to reflect on the things we've done well also. So while we have challenges ahead, we do have, we've done some amazing things in India. And I'd like to say that even when I was president, the study really showed that if we could just move up by 5% of women working in the workforce, we could add almost $700 billion to the GDP. And I think that's significant of women-led. But more than anything, I think it's important that we understand we're not retrofitting jobs, the male jobs. I think women have a place to be able to do their own. And CII has identified these, and this is some of the things that we'll discuss today. So it's truly women-led development. And digital is of course leading on the forefront. We discussed this even yesterday in the future of jobs and skilling, that digital will play a huge role, and women are easily more than capable of getting into this. The good news is that while labor participation among women tends to be lower in India, if you look at the middle management, and this is the subject we're going to be talking about today, India is just like the world. In middle management, 36% of all the women in middle management in companies are women. And I think that's a very positive trend. And this is something that the power of the network and the CII network, that we will only accelerate and probably become global leaders in this. Because if in medical colleges, in engineering colleges, we've seen the number of women in STEM is going up. There's lots we have to do, but I think that if you look at the last 10 years, there's definitely a tremendous amount that we can celebrate. So let me lead up to the first question from our minister. And by the way, I really enjoyed hearing you in Davos. They just showed a clipping, but I think that she was at the forefront. That was not just talking about India-led development, but India-led development through women. So the real question is that while you are the Minister for Women and Children, and we know there are many Indias that you're responsible for, in this particular gathering, could you tell us what you think would be the power of a woman-led networking, and how that would impact how we would be able to accelerate India's growth?
I think that at the onset, when the clip was played, what was fascinating for me was, of the 700 women that the survey was done amongst, only 40% wanted to rise to the top of their companies. So my need would be first to reflect on why 60% of those women who were spoken to did not want the top slot in their companies. That would be a fascinating reflection. Does that say volumes about the companies they are a part of, or is it an individual challenge with regards to ambition or with regards to skill sets that needs to get addressed? I also believe that when I saw the iWin logo, at the footnote, it says Women Matter. And I strongly believe that when you want to talk about women-centered issues, one needs to communicate why women matter. So if you matter, make sure women matter. Be it your organization, be it your communities, be it your family. Because for far too long, even the advocacy and the language around it has given an impression as though women in India particularly need to be rescued. I think what now is a part of conversations, not only in India, but across the world about Indian women, is that they are at the very fulcrum, not only of change, which is positive, they are at the very center of powerful transitions and transformations. When you speak about this desire that, listen to me, I matter, you speak from a position of weakness in the trenches, possibly. What I'm extremely elated about is the 40% women who said unequivocally that I want to be at the top position of my company. That is a huge change. And I believe that when you're talking about managements, and as CB in his opening remarks said, we now want to transition women from small enterprises to enterprises which are mid-sized companies. What does that transition entail? Possibly that can be reflected in the network that you're hoping to create. And where is that network to prosper or to spread? We are mindful of the fact that CII now represents one of the biggest chunks of industry leaders who matter to the GDP, who contribute successfully to the GDP. But what of the voices that are never at the table where the GDP gets discussed? For instance, you have close to 7 to 8 million self-help groups, of which you have 90 million members who are women. Now, every year they handle credit worth close to $30 billion, which means that they have a skill set which comes with regards to fiscal management. They have a skill set which shows fiscal discipline and fiscal prudence, because most of the credit that they manage, they never falter on it. The NPAs are less than 2%. Now, with such a huge body of women who have time and again, year after year, proved their fiscal capacities, and that fiscal capacity obviously is proven because they are at the very baseline manufacturing something or servicing something, then do they have a voice in this network? I believe that most of the networks and mentoring which is created in the industry associations is already for those who have a voice. And I believe that I win will really win when those without a seat at the table of the big daddies of industry, when they start having that seat and that voice, I think that is where your network will truly serve the purpose of New India.
That's very cool when you're talking really about inclusion and giving people who don't have a voice. And I think many Indian women don't have a voice. And
oh, they have a voice.
Not at our table.
Who is listening is the question that needs to get addressed.
Okay.
Indian women don't have a problem speaking. They have a problem of being heard.
I stand corrected. But having said that, and I think one of the places where they could be heard is really in this new world of digitization. And as we move forward and you see that so many of the job opportunities, in fact, they said that 85 million people will probably lose their jobs in the world, but there are 97 million new jobs, World Economic Forum statistic, that new jobs that will be created. But many of these jobs are going to require a huge amount of digital skills. And I worry now, these are the tougher stories that we heard, is that if people are given choices in families of education between male and female, and you would prefer to give less to the women, or how do we change such stereotypes? How do we make sure that digitization doesn't become a tool of creating divides, but becomes more inclusive? How are you looking at it?
I think one of the greatest fallacies is that women are not digitally empowered. The pandemic, in fact, has become one of the greatest opportunities to resolutely say that women know how to use digital services, and women also know how to ensure that they become a part of service delivery. For instance, we had over 6 million women as frontline healthcare workers who went door to door and reported on what they saw with regards to the pandemic at the grassroots, be it Anganwadi workers or ASHA workers or their helpers or nurses on the ground and female doctors on the ground. They did all of that digitally. And that is a skill force which possibly post-pandemic you may want to reflect on, and how do you expand their opportunities and create an ecosystem where their skill set can be repurposed now for a post-pandemic world. The second aspect is everywhere across the world, when it came to the delivery of vaccines, there was a concern whether there will be a gender disparity in the delivery of the vaccine. What has been fascinating about the Indian story is that our vaccine was not delivered on paper, it was digitally delivered. There was certification that was digitally done. And post the pandemic, if you look at the numbers, all of that digital interface with regards to the delivery of the vaccine was indulged in by Indian female citizens without disruption. Again, a proof that in terms of digital engagements, women are not left behind if you give them an opportunity to engage. So how do you enhance an opportunity for engagement digitally for women? One of our greatest challenges with regards to digital technology is language. We are a country with 16,000 dialects and 125 constitutionally recognized languages. But in how many languages is our technology available? If you look at the linguistic diversity of our country, you will recognize that the predominant language of technology is English. Now we are pushing the envelope when it comes to usage of technology in Hindi. But we still have the linguistic diversity and the scope that I speak of to scale up digital transformations and digital delivery of services. What would be interesting is if CII can denote how much of digital opportunity is lost because of unavailability of technology in the local language. That is not only a challenge that you will flag off, but you will always also help precipitate the access to a solution, and an accelerated solution which can be frugally met given India's IT power.
I really like that point, because you've given us an action point, because once, we always look at the opportunities and we have to see what it is that it would actually push the needle. So what you feel is that digitization can not only bring scale to India's empowerment, but what CII needs to do is to help map what would be the differentiation if we can bring language as a skill into it. And of course, what do you think that will ChatGPT make a difference for women?
I think that with each new technological discovery, there is a huge excitement about the adventure that would ensue. The issue is, should we be myopic enough to get exhilarated by just one product? The other issue is that when you look at the skill sets or the scale of I win, and I said that the language regarding the advocacy has to change, that if you matter, make sure women matter. The other issue and the agenda on the table should be that we communicate to every family and organization that if I win, you win. Because women, when they win, do not keep the spoils of that victory to themselves. They share with their families, with their communities. And where is their share most enhanced? In education spend, in spend towards healthcare, which is an industry unto itself. Even the FMCG range of companies that we have, when you enhance that purchasing power of women, why do you think that the government ensured during the pandemic 30,000 crore rupees was directly transferred to the bank accounts of 220 million Indian women? Because while the government was giving free vaccines, while the government was giving free ration, we wanted to ensure that the financial power of that woman at home, who is the poorest of the poor, is maintained in some facet where she feels a sense of comfort. So I believe that one, when you look at technological change and how do you transition from adversity to opportunity for women, we need to, one, ensure that the linguistic divide is something that we can address. The second issue is, if you look at the skills report, you will find that women and men both who are skilled, the employability of women is for 51.4% as compared to skilled men, and their employability is around 45%. Which shows the seriousness with which women go to institutions to get skilled and then absorb that skill set and then are available, are industry ready to be undertaking an opportunity to go further. So does the network address the enhancement of employability of those women from 51% onwards, let's say, to 70%. What do we need to do to jump to that 70%, that 20% addition? How can we do it? What are the hallmarks of that? I think that again will be of great comfort to women. The third issue, and I will again go back to what CB was saying in his opening statements, when we are looking at transitioning women from small businesses to mid-sized business, how do you locate that woman or that business? What is the framework in which that enterprise, which is female-led and truly female-led, not only on paper so that one can get a financial support from a bank, but truly female-owned and led, how many of those enterprises can be identified on different markers which have a future-ready industry waiting for that transition to mid-sized companies? So while pronouncements are very ambitious, if you start working at the detail of it, I think you will see the female-led entrepreneurial revolution that we've often spoken about when you address these details.
I think that this is another very good idea, that what we should do is to map that, because if you look at India, I see the number of companies in the mid-levels that have transitioned. So few companies really transition to the big league. So between the small to the medium to the big, we take away from your message that when we're building this network of IWIN and CII, which has so many diverse companies, we'll make sure, and we'll come back to you in a year.
I think that there is such a big, there is cacophony around unicorns, there is cacophony around startups, but we need to recognize that if we enhance our ecosystem of mid-sized companies, that is where we will actually kick off a new aspect of our economic growth. And if you study economies around the world that have gone to a new benchmark of economic success, there you have found that most of that success was owed to a volume of mid-sized companies. The challenge before us is that we are in a transitory stage as a global economy. Which are those industry segments which will be redundant, let's say 5 years or 10 years from now? Do we have a map of those and complemented to the geographical rise of our enterprise across the country? And see how do you infuse certain technological interventions, especially which are women friendly. And when I say women friendly, it means that it looks at the issue of language. It looks at the ease of digitally engaging on finance. And we need to consider also women who are challenged from a disability point of view. Divyang women, do they have a voice on your table? Do they have a voice in your network? Because their challenges are completely different. It's a double whammy for them, the gender and the disability.
When you walked in, remember I said that it's difficult for me to, speak with someone so articulate, but I think that what this conversation, this is no longer a conversation. You've actually now given us a bit of a roadmap and a challenge. So I want to see you here next year, please. And ask us. We would have done some of these things that you're asking, because as IWIN launches, it's pointless if we don't get some work done on it. So I love the points that you spoke about.
But next time we need to make one correction.
And what is?
We as women have always been on platforms where our numbers are minuscule as compared to men. We know what prejudice feels like. And today it feels as though I have brought that prejudice upon CB. If you want the women's agenda and agency to genuinely prosper, you need as many seats for men on the table as you need of women. Because women's issues are not issues of women alone.
All I can say here is that here's an audience, so we need to be heard. And I think that there are a lot of men listening. So when we come back to you next year, we'll make sure that, we're talking about what you said is that we've mapped out language skills and how that can make an impact on, across the industries. What are the number of Mittelstand or the middle companies that are women-led? How can we find ways, and how many of them are being mentored by CII companies to transition them? And we'll actually get you statistics on some of these very
and
important.
as the family of CII gathers here for partnerships,
Yeah.
Another, as I leave, is a point I would request for reflection. There are magazines galore in our country that hold award ceremonies and conclaves for women in business. And they award them, which is something that I celebrate. But why is it that when the same magazine takes out a list of the top 100 CEOs, you found fewer women? So why is it that we celebrate female leadership in business in a magazine which, when it runs the 100 list, we find a smattering of women? Where is the disconnect? If we can have not only you winning, but even the other end looking at it, I think that's where the answers lie. CB always regrets being on a platform with me.
No, it took 100 years for CII to have a woman president, but I think it'll be a lot shorter. That we'll take, the 40 that you did the survey and said that want to be leadership, those 40 will break into the top league very soon. And I think it may take a decade, but I think that people like you who are being heard and who speak about it, and the more that we listen to it, those doors open up. And I think that's very important, that you push us once, twice, thrice, have the patience to do it even 5 times, and the lists will start changing. But we'll definitely see you here. CB, do we have time for the audience?
I just want to mention one data point. I was trying to look in the hall and trying to figure out whether the
how many men versus women?
There was any the gentleman is present or not. Madam Minister, a couple of years back, I was invited by the managing director of a construction company to go and address their shop floor. And I sort of agreed, of course, to go, and I went with him. And I said that, what do you want me to speak in, and what language do you want me to speak in? He said, you choose your language, English, Hindi, you choose your language. Said, people in the shop floor. And he kept the surprise onto me. It was a metal and construction company building big earth-moving equipments and all that. So I said that, how many? They said that about, in this particular plant at this point in time, new plant, 250 shop floor workers. Ma'am, I went into the hall to address, and I was not sure where I have come to. Out of the 200, about 150 were young girls between 25 and 30 years of age. And again, I asked, what language? He said, your choice. So I spoke in Hindi and English.
I wonder who was on the board.
We'll talk that offline. You know that. So
I know about the shop floors.
Yeah.
But I want to genuinely reflect on how many women were there on the company board.
The company board, absolutely.
Because you have around 423 million women of working age in India currently, of which 330 million women are in the unorganized sector.
Yeah.
So you'll find us everywhere on all shop floors.
Yeah, exactly.
300 million of us.
Yeah, but the good story of that is that they could be on such a shop floor which we feel that they cannot be. I mean, where it's understood that only men can do.
So now you have, after the Prime Minister has endorsed the Labour Code, now you have women in underground mining in our country, which never happened before.
Fantastic.
And the fact that those women could be employed immediately means that there was an availability of that skill set amongst women, which is the most distinguished skill set to have, to work in an underground mine. All they needed was legislative support and a business opportunity.
So, Madam, because you said that, I have another question. As a policymaker, how much of it you think should be legislation, and how much of it do you think should be the commitment, and that should come from the people, from the boards, from
I think that in terms of policy making, we need to recognize that Prime Minister Modi has ensured that not only policy in one segment or one department is gendered, but also ensuring that every department consciously ensures that the quality of spend towards gender is enhanced. This budget has brought over 2,20,000 crores only for gender spend. We are the only country in the world where under the 15th Finance Commission, now for our Panchayati Raj system, we have 6,22,000 villages in our country. The fund flow now in the 15th Finance Commission is also tied to gender spend, which does not happen in any other democracy in the world. So I believe that while the government has not only framework policy, but also spend, it is incumbent upon the industry to now follow suit. For instance, the government has pronounced 26 weeks as maternity leave, but how many women actually consciously indulge in that opportunity? Does an organization make a woman feel safe enough to take that maternity leave, or does she feel threatened, unconsciously so, that if I take that leave, that means I'm out of the work cycle in my organization? So my belief is that when you look at issues like the POSH Act, how many companies genuinely have a very vibrant internal complaints committee, and how many women feel safe to report harassment to that committee? There are many who feel if I report a harassment, that's the end of my career, at least in that vertical. So while the government has formulated the law for it, while the government ensures that we back it with fiscal spend, it is incumbent upon industry now to lead that transformation.
Thank you very much for that, because that is a very, very important task once again to CII. We will work with it. We have 2 women leaders sitting here, and we'll involve the men in CII too, to see to it that we have codes which are adopted and practiced by our member companies, and we'll come back and report to you. Madam Minister, we have a few people from the audience who have requested me for question. Ms. Anant is from the Israel Asia Chamber of Commerce and the CEO of the BDO Israel Investment Banking and Consulting.
You hear me? Yes. So very nice hearing you. And thanks for inviting me to say a few words. I'm the first female president of the Israel Asia Chamber of Commerce. And we are a 40 years chamber. And for the first time, I was elected last month. So I take privilege in sharing your vision for women empowerment. The IWN is a great step forward to empower women, and we would be happy to collaborate with CII to connect women to women, because the women power, and I'm afraid that men here will not understand it, has strength, and we really want to help each other. So this is a great step forward, and I'll be happy to collaborate on the international level. When you are talking about skill development, Israel opened in India 30 excellence center in agriculture. And may I suggest that when we take the skill development, I'll be happy that Israel will also collaborate in skill development in agriculture, and in Israel it's actually precision agriculture, yes, which makes agriculture much more profitable. And my question to you is, what kind of skills you are going to focus on? I, of course, suggest agriculture and digital health, which are extremely important, and that's also for you, Mr. Kaminini. Yeah, so this is my question to you. What is the focus of your skill development?
So while the CII brochure with regards to IWN talks about energy sector, healthcare, it does speak about agriculture as an opportunity. And I think you've hit the nail on the head when you talk about precision agriculture, because you have more and more of youngsters who believe that agriculture no longer ensures profitability. And when you infuse precision skills into it, you enhance their opportunity to, in some way, elaborate their income opportunities. One of the greatest challenges with regards to agricultural skill is the acceptance that you need to be reskilled or upskilled. Because there is a presumption that if I am an agriculturist, then I already know what to do. I know my soil, I know the temperature, I know the water use, I know how the crop, it's a feel, I know how the crop works on my field. Now to get people transitioning from that look and feel aspect of agriculture to have that legacy of family history with regards to agriculture, and make them accept that it is a precision skill and it is a precision industry is itself a big change. So I believe that when you offer your services to IWIN, I as a Minister of Women and Child Development am more than happy to particularly support this particular venture for two reasons. One, like I said, there are 300 million women who are in the unorganized sector, predominantly so in the field of agriculture. Now, there has to be a distinction that needs to be brought about between women who are land owners and women who are land cultivators, and then women who are only labor on that land. If we can divide what are the skill set for each segment of such female agriculturists, I think that we can deliver those services to them or those solutions to them with alacrity. The fourth segment of it is a self-help group revolution that I was talking to Shobana about, that if you have close to 7 million self-help groups, their dominant engagement is in the field of agriculture. So while we have divided now the three parts of female agricultural engagement from a land ownership, land cultivation to a land labor perspective, we add the fourth vertical of the self-help group and say who are the ones who are pre-processing before a crop is available for agro-processing. You will see an infusion of funds and corporate presence in agro-processing, but there are many pre-processing facilities in which we can leverage the skill set of women and leverage the power of self-help groups in our country. The budget has envisaged clustering of self-help groups, and I think that facet of the budget can complement this very initiative that we are speaking about. So as far as women in agriculture, the sky's the limit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Edith Nodman. Will come. Edith Nodman, the chairperson of India Netherlands Chamber and the managing partner of the ACG International Netherlands. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee. Honorable Minister, it's a pleasure to be here and to hear your strong voice in this very important topic. And I couldn't agree more with you that men and women should be jointly sitting at that table. And in order to do that, there have to be more women to have an equal number of people at that boardroom, because not only because of women sitting there, because jointly, I think we can just make a better job in doing what we should do. Now, digitization has been a space that we as the Netherlands have invested in and tried to integrate in the workforce quite strongly. And we would be very keen on sharing our experience and knowledge with you in order to come to solutions, and we can co-develop those. We have had quite a big fund. The GSD5 fund in the Netherlands is 510 million euros, which is big, especially seeing the fact that our country only has 70 million people, 17. Can you imagine? Less than Delhi, and half of it are women. So we are excited about the focus on digitization in the Global Alliance for Skilling Future-Ready Women, and look forward to your thoughts on how you think that we can partner most effectively, not only having different languages, but also from a different national background.
I think that CII works best with the Indian diaspora across the world. And you do have members of the CII who not only contribute from an industry or a skill perspective, but also we've had family legacies in our country of contributing towards communities to build community projects which have no resonance in businesses, but have resonance with regards to how our communities prosper. So when you talk about internationalization of your partnership with CII, I believe that if you can internationalize the opportunities of Indian women who are overseas right now and see what upskilling they need, because they may be contracted there as employees, but may have discovered the potential of starting their own enterprise, or may have the potential of servicing supply chain needs of Indian companies. Can you target that particular talent and bring them closer to this engagement? I think your partnership will work really well for such women.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ahmed Sabah Al Saloom from Bahrain.
Thank you and good morning.
Morning.
And it's a pleasure today to hear you and hear all this successful. Actually, after hearing all these numbers and achievements, really well done, and really you did a great job. And we would like to cooperate and share this experience and achievement in our country. Actually, I have two questions.
Yes.
It was really interesting to hear that framing of opportunities and how they are opening up the market for women. Of special interest is the global value chain and the role of SMEs that are being led by women to participate on these. What are some initiatives that the government is taking around trade policies to capitalize on this trend, and how might we contribute in the initiatives of an alliance to make this on to an advantage for all women at the global level? Thank you.
Well, I believe that when you look at just the proposal from Netherlands, if you are doing an engagement at the government level, then our trade relationships are expansive enough to complement the needs of both communities in both nations with regards to not only current industry and enterprise that needs fulfillment of its supply chain needs, but also whether both our nation states in terms of our partnership can draw out a map so that our workforce can be future ready. In terms of commercial engagements, one at times dips into the fallacy of engaging only on what is available now. There is very little engagement when we look at partnership from the perspective of future engagements. So if I just reflect on the global alliance that I even hopes to create, while everybody has been effusive about my work with the Ministry of Women and Child Development, it's not often told that I'm also the Minister for Minority Affairs in India. So if we are looking at women from minority communities, what is their challenge with regards to first education? Second, what is their challenge with regards to skill sets? But third, what is their biggest challenge with regards to community participation in skills of the future, or for that matter, being a part of the workforce in unconventional areas of engagement? For instance, if I ask about women in the minority communities who may have a skill set that can complement a manufacturing unit only dependent on electronics, how many women do we have who understand foldable electronics? For them to understand foldable electronics, one needs to see how many of them have graduated out of technological institutions. For them to be a part of technological higher education institutions, they need to have done stupendously well in high school with regards to STEM. How many of those young girls now graduate from high school STEM schools to university systems? So my belief is that we do a great disservice to the cause of women when we are myopic only at one level of the supply chain and wonder why we do not have the problem addressed across. For us to address many issues with regards to women and their skill opportunity or the entrepreneurial opportunity, we also need to be reflective of their academic engagements. Let's say leadership skills, and my first comment on those 700 women, how many of them in their academic experience had seen an academic leader in the institution that they were studying in? It would be fascinating to see how many of them got inspired by women at the helm when they are young girls, so that they understand that they can be leaders as well. And that is why when I'd like a reflection of the 700 women, of the ones who did not want to be ambitious enough to be at the top of their companies, how many of them were burdened by social circumstances where they could never imagine a woman at the helm of affairs? So the issue of women's agency is a bit complex, but I'm grateful that I have so many people wanting to be a part of the solution.
Yes, please.
Hi. Hi, my name is Namrata. I represent an organization called Dr. Reddy's. First of all, you made our lives very easy, because working for diversity and inclusion for so many years, last 3 years have been the best years, we have maternity leave, we have night shift women, we have a lot of legislations which have really helped us. So I'm very lucky. And then when I talk to my developed country colleagues, we are much more liberal in our legislations than many of the developed countries. So that was a moment of pride for me. The question is on the pay parity, right? And we are 7. When I was just doing, and I took an award from you 2 years back on Bloomberg Gender Parity Index when Dr. Reddy's was the only company. Now there are 7 Indian companies in Bloomberg Pay Parity Index. But I just want what can be done more for pay parity. And the second question, okay, maybe I'll ask the second question later.
No, go ahead. Okay. I can multitask.
So the second question is, because you hold child and women development, there's a strong correlation of parenting with how women are brought up, how children are brought up in general, and how women are brought up. And I was reading a research on career and parenting. There's a stronger correlation. Maybe there's an opportunity to do something there. So these were the.
So I think CB asked best, how much should government do and how much should industry do? And now you've brought in a new context, how much should families do? Because we as a free nation state, as a democracy, do not want a government official to teach us how to parent. And it's interesting that when you talk about parenting and you talk about how women are brought up, you don't talk about how men are brought up. Because bringing up children is not the responsibility of the woman alone. So if you want to ensure that you're looking at how females are brought up, you also need to see how men are brought up. So that possibly marries into your first question, which means when we talk about parity, you may wonder why should that be in any way relevant to your first question. And I think the relevance comes from the capacity of women to negotiate. Pay parity is mandated by law. How many women will sit at the negotiating table and get cold feet when they have competition, especially with a man, and not ask for what is rightfully theirs? There are 2 things that overcome you in terms of fear. One is you can't afford that adventure when you sit and negotiate. But one wonders why men can afford that adventure. So it is a mindset. For instance, when I went to Amethi to fight, I didn't go to fight because I was the female being sent by my political organization. I was sent to fight because I was the best candidate to go there and bring down a political establishment. So it's also incumbent upon us individually, and I say so without an iota of guilt, because I come from the trenches. My first salary was $800 from a corporate organization. Before that, just 10 kilometers away, I was on Janpat selling cosmetics on the street for $200 a day. So I went from $200 a day selling cosmetics on the street to becoming the highest paid media professional this country has ever seen. Because I knew how to negotiate. And I got better at my job. And then I told my boss one day, you can afford to sack the man, can't afford to sack me. But that engagement for women may be termed as an arrogant engagement. So what is that fine line between ambition and arrogance that you need to walk? What is that fine line on negotiating tables that we need to teach young girls? Because you can't teach negotiations when you're 40, when you're 30. You need to teach that skill early. So we have many people wanting to teach financial literacy. Is negotiation a part of that literacy engagement? I think when you teach a woman to negotiate, you teach her not to be equal in terms of pay sets. You actually teach her the capacity to ask for more than anybody else that she's sitting with. Because you don't want to contextualize a negotiation only from the perspective of which other man gets how much you get as a pay packet. You need to change that conversation and say which other individual gets more than you. Do they get it because they have better skill sets than you? Or do they get it because they have better negotiating skill sets than you? And do you get shortchanged because you're very talented, but you don't know how to negotiate?
Extremely well said, ma'am. Thank you very much. I know we have you're multitasking. You have a hard stop, and you'll have to get it's
Back to Parliament. Yes.
And you have the Parliament on, and you've come in spite of that. So I'll hand it back to Shobna and Smita to really wrap up.
I think we have a hard stop, but thank you so much for your enthusiastic participation. That some of the answers we have, all of us have heard it, and now many of us have been challenged to do better and to do more, and which is why I want to hand it over to Smita. Smita is the chairperson of IWIN. So Smita, you have to, the task is on you now to make sure that a lot of these things are happening, but you have all of us in CII. So we will have women at the main table. Every year I keep saying that. And we're definitely going to have more women presidents, but we will have more women on the table. But Smita, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shobna ji. And it's been an absolutely brilliant session, and it's absolutely amazing always, Honorable Minister, to hear you. It's a privilege to hear you speak, and the thoughts that you share on India's continued focus on women, and the steps that have been taken to integrate women as key contributors in India's growth have been always truly inspiring. Shobna ji mentioned your address in Davos, and the many times that we've heard you speak and advocate for women's causes, and all the action points that you've shared with us today. As we step into this new era of the work that IWIN hopes to do, I think we have the path set out for us, and the inputs that you've given us here today are very, very meaningful. And I promise we will have you back here in a year's time and have something to show for what we've started out to do. It's really no surprise for us that under the Honorable Prime Minister's leadership, India's actually been creating new benchmarks, setting an example for the world on how women-led development can fuel the growth of a nation. Shobna ji and CB, their stewardship, and I think at IWN we are very, very thankful for the guidance and the support that we've been getting. As this important agenda related to women's growth, women empowerment, and now women-led development is being pivotal and actioned all across CII. And we are seeing the importance of this agenda because it's going to bring a monumental change in the Indian industry when it comes to inclusion. CII, through the Indian Women Network and the National Committee on Women Empowerment, has been working to create robust ecosystems that will enable women to fulfill their economic potential and also involve them in a leadership journey. Through advocacy, knowledge creation, and on-the-ground interventions, IWN, with its 23 chapters, ma'am, across the country, and the CII National Committee for Women Empowerment has been working to promote equal opportunities for women, supporting them in participating, growing, flourishing, and leading the Indian economy. I just want to very quickly mention some of the initiatives. I know you have a hard stop, but we've been working towards the implementation of capacity building initiatives for women, as well as for the industry and the entire ecosystem to engage women, not just at the entry level, but also to grow them into leadership positions. We have initiatives, just like you mentioned, about the skilling on campus to career for young female students, for mentorship for mid-level women professionals, and executive presence workshops and learning programs on entrepreneurship. There's been a lot of work that has been done on development of tools and matrices that not just only serve the purpose of benchmarking, but also help to nudge companies to adopt more inclusive practices. And the CII Gender Diagnostic Tool is a tool that helps companies identify this. A huge amount of work that we've been doing and we hope to do under this. Ma'am, we would love to get an opportunity to come and meet you and get to understand more how we can action this.
That's exactly what I was talking to CB, Monday afternoon, 20th.
Wow, this is the sort of action that we're hoping, and thank you so much, ma'am. It's been a real privilege, and we're honored that you have launched the IWN Global Alliance. And on behalf of every woman who's associated with IWN and the new membership of over 20,000 women, like you said, trying to reach the women who don't have a voice, we are actually expanding the network with great speed, and we hope that we can actually give a voice to the action that you've given today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's hear it louder for all the panelists, please. It's been a very interesting session. I'd now like to request Ms. Shobna Kamineni to kindly hand over a few token of our appreciation and affection to the Minister. These are ODOP gifts. These are ODOP gifts, one district, one product, selected by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. CB, can you do the honors and gift one to Shobna also? Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session